All Fours is a book that was written by Miranda July, who is apparently a very prominent figure in the writing world. It's a story about a 45-year-old semi-popular author that is planning to go on a road trip from LA to New York. Only after 30 minutes of driving, she meets a guy who she's gonna have emotional and later, I would say, physical affair with. In the second half of the book, she deals with the consequences of what she has done in the first part of it, and she also goes through a lot of hormonal shifts due to premenopause. I did enjoy reading this book. It got me hooked. I liked that her character was very well written, but very flawed and annoying at times. There's some decisions that did make sense, but there's plenty of decisions that people make that don't make sense in the real world as well, so it just made it more realistic. It is a journey of self-acceptance and understanding yourself. I like the exploration of being fluid in not only your sexuality but also in your marriage. At some point it was very uncomfortable. It always makes me think about why those scenes made me feel uncomfortable, so I thought it was just a fun read overall. I have also watched a documentary called The Rescue. Basically a white man with very specific hobbies trying to save 16 or 20 young boys from Thailand from drowning in the cave. So right before the flood season, the caves were still open, so the soccer team decided to go there for fun. I never really understood this part. I'm not a big fan of caves at all, especially the ones that can flood. A lot of twists and turns throughout the documentary, although I did feel like it was getting too long at one point. Cave diving is a thing I never understood until someone from this documentary explained it to me in a way where maybe I can see how some people would like it. So basically he compared it to space exploration. But I guess I can see you wear very heavy equipment, you can die at any time, you don't know what's gonna happen. I can see the appeal a little bit now. I hate that US military was involved, and at least I got the impression they didn't really do anything aside from providing them with food here and there. Very sad that during this mission, one person from Thai army, he unfortunately died. All the kids were rescued. Maternal Instinct is a documentary on Netflix that everyone is talking about right now. It's about a famous case where a woman murders a pregnant friend and takes out her baby out of her just to later pretend it was her, because she was lying about being pregnant 4 months to her husband, I guess his relative and his inner circle, even though she cannot have babies anymore because she had her whole uterus removed because of something, I forgot what it was. And it's so sad that because mental health awareness is so low in that area that no one even had an idea to try to contact someone who can help her. I mean, this woman was for sure not mentally doing well. They tried to portray her as this evil, horrible person. This person is very mentally unwell, and the more you go on with your life with mental illness being untreated and being ignored by everyone, the worse it's gonna get. I think she probably had some bipolar disorder, other things on top of that, and just the fact that no one tried to help her, no one thought about it, is so crazy to me. Her husband, I don't know if they even got married at that point or they were just engaged, but they tried to portray him as like this good, kind country boy, especially his mom. Shocker. But the fact that he did not know that his wife was not pregnant for like almost 8 to 9 months is baffling to me, especially if everyone else around you trying to tell you something when you ask any questions. I mean, he did say that he tried to go to doctor's appointments with her, but then they would get cancelled or moved. And I feel like if I was the man, even if appointments would get cancelled or moved to some other day, I would still try to make it the next time, and he was not doing it. She did this horrible thing. I did not like how documentary just brushed off of like all the people who were around her at that time, because there's some things they could have done. Maybe they could have made the situation not be as bad if they reacted like quicker, and it's just sad. I mean, with death sentences, don't support it, period. I don't think the government should have a right to decide who to kill. The situation's fucked up. The murder itself is horrible. It's just sad that those people who were around her, his inner circle and her fiance husband himself, will probably not learn a lesson from this. Another book I've read this month is Sensuous Knowledge, a Black feminist approach for everyone, and I would definitely recommend this book if you're like trying to read more progressive books, trying to understand more of like intersectionality, and how if you're trying to understand how patriarchy is connected to racism, is connected to capitalism, I think this book is very beginner friendly when it comes to that, because I myself also haven't read a lot of books like that. Right now I'm reading The Exhausted of the World, which is a little heavier, so I'm going through it slowly, but this book is a very fast read, and the author manages to put everything in a way that it's easier to understand. It's always good to listen to Black women specifically as people who get the worst treatment in our society. Definitely would recommend. Ryland Grace, I'll probably call him Ryan at some parts of this video. He wakes up with a tube up his ass and with 2 dead bodies. He doesn't have any memories of who he is and why he's there, but through some small experience he finds out that he is not on Earth and he's in the spaceship flying somewhere. His memories do slowly return to him, and he realizes that he is on the spaceship Project Hail Mary that is trying to solve the Petrova problem. Astrophagus is a single cell alien life form. Petrova line is basically just a line full of astrophagus that go from Venus to Sun. Ryland is a junior high school teacher who used to do studies in extracelestial biology, but he did leave because of, I think, how his other co-workers perceived him and how no one took his work seriously. He used to argue that water is not necessary for the life form. That's why Dr. Strauss, the person who has basically all authority in the world, recruited him just for him to experiment and look at astrophage samples. They find out that astrophage does unfortunately have water in it. It can store enormous amount of energy. Ryland, through some of the experiments, finds out the reason why astrophage goes to Venus and goes to Sun is because they breed there. Astrophage goes to the Sun for some energy, then uses that energy to go to Venus to breed, and then goes to the Sun again with their offspring. Tau Ceti is a star that is infected by astrophage but doesn't seem to dim. He comes across an alien spaceship, although when I did read the book I thought it would be people from the future or something weird related to the timeline, and I'm happy to be proven wrong. They communicate at first using cylinders. The alien sends Ryland the information about where he's from using a model to show him what planet he comes from, and then he uses different models to show Ryland that he wants to build a bridge between their base ship just to communicate better. We get introduced to the cutest, not the cutest, but one of the cutest aliens in all the space story, Rocky. He's an alien from the planet Edit that has the same goal as Ryland, to investigate what's going on in Tau Ceti to save his planet from dying out. Rocky is described to have a spider-esque silhouette and is made completely of rocks. He doesn't have any visible ears or eyes or mouth, and he's the size of a Labrador. After spending some time with Rocky, Ryland gets tired, so he brings a clock just to show Rocky that he will come back after a certain amount of time. Rocky excitingly brings back his version of the clock that they have on Edit. They also have an airlock that they can use to pass things to each other, since the environment they can survive in is different. He gives him the measurement tape, and Rocky is so cute, he's just playing with it. And after that, or during that, Ryland realizes that Rocky cannot be anything, so this measuring tape with specific markers in it, completely useless to Rocky, but he still plays with it and puts around it, and that's when Ryland realized that Rocky is a scientist. He is technically an engineer, but he still has this urge to discover things and just to explore. As I said, Rocky is blind, so that's the reason why when Ryland brought the human clock to him, Rocky wanted Ryland to put it directly on the wall just so he can feel the vibrations of the clock. We get more flashbacks of how the mission was organized. Astrophage is a great fuel resource, but to save as much time as possible, it was decided that they can only make fuel on the way there but not back. So basically it's going to be a suicide mission, and since it takes a long time to get there, they decided to put the crew into the medical induced comas teammates so that they won't have to fight with each other, or just of psychological reasons. There is a specific gene that is responsible for waking up from that, and all of the people get tested, and Strauss basically organized 2 batches of teams, Team A and Team B, just in case something happens with Team A. To our surprise, Ryland is in neither of the teams. Ryland and Rocky try to learn each other's languages. We find out that Rocky has a photographic memory. He's also very good at math. Whenever they talk about measurements, he always mentions humans' measurements because he can calculate things super fast. And I think small things like that maybe were not missed in the movie, but in the book you get to feel them more in a way, and you get to feel like Rocky is his own creature being. He was portrayed as a little more skilled in the book compared to the movie. One of the traditions that they have on edit is watching each other sleep, and Rocky insists on Ryland sleeping in that bridge corridor they have so he can watch him. We also find out that Rocky wasn't the only person, the only alien that was sent to this mission. He had 26 crewmates that they all died due to mysterious illness. Ryland pieces things together. He realized that Rocky crewmates died due to radiation. Based on how Edit is built, it had a very strong radiation protection, so they just didn't know it existed. And Astrophage works, I guess, as a radiation barrier in a way. So because Rocky is an engineer, he mostly worked next to fuel tanks and stuff, so next to Astrophage. That's why he was not affected as much as his crewmates. By the way, the reason why they have this tradition of watching each other sleep is because when Irradians sleep, they get fully paralyzed, so they kind of really wake them up. It's good to have someone to watch over you while you sleep and get your energy back. Irradians usually live 600 years or a little more than that, and Rocky is 150 or something. He's very young, and they're produced by laying eggs next to each other, and those eggs mash together. I don't remember all the details, but I think that's how it goes. Rocky has built a life support system for himself just so he can go to Ryland's side of the tunnel of the ship, and he wants to explore and just see things. We also find out they don't have computers. Rocky just gets super excited about human technology, him being able to interact with it. He is a messy bitch. He brings a lot of things in Ryland's spaceship. I think movie cut back heavily on the flashbacks, how powerful Dr. Strauss was. There's a scene in the book where she goes to court because either company, someone is trying to sue her just because she put all of the data that there was on Earth, I don't know, in the ship without asking for a license or paying. And she basically goes there, says that you cannot do anything because she has immunity, and leave. We didn't get that in the movie, and I think in the book feels more authoritarian. In the book, she also brings a person out of prison to help them build like the whole system in Sahara Desert to breed as many astrophages as possible. The person was in jail because of their negligence. A lot of people died, but she didn't really care about that. She just wanted him out and like trying to solve the problem as fast as possible because there was a limited time left. I think it was the person who suggested they should try to implement gravity in the spaceship. She just basically brought them from Belgium, didn't give them a choice, and just said either you go now by yourself or people are gonna pick you up and bring you by force. So in the movie they definitely soften her a lot. Ryland finally tells Rocky that he's on suicide mission, and because they don't have enough fuel to go back home. For a second I think Rocky gets sad, but then he asks Ryland how much fuel he needs, and we find out that Rocky has much more fuel than needed for him and for Ryland to go back to their home. Because they did not know of the time dilation, they have extra fuel. As I mentioned in the beginning, Tau Ceti is the only star that seems to be unaffected by astrophage. There's a planet Adrian next to it. They get a sample of astrophage and Adrian. It indicates that astrophage maybe has a predator there, and maybe astrophage comes from this planet system. They determined that predators probably live lower in the atmosphere, so it would be very hard mission for them to try to go in and get a sample of the predator. Rocky builds a chain, and there's this whole intense scene of Ryland almost dying. When he gets back onto the ship having the the sample, they realized that because of the heat, the fuel tank opened up. Astrophage just started going out towards the energy, obviously. He detached the damaged tank, but then it made them spin. Ryland's chair breaks. It weighs him down, so he gets dizzy, can't move. At this point, Rocky gets out of his life support just to try to save Ryland. Rocky tells Ryland to save the Earth and save Erid, and I thought he was dead. I was so sad because I thought he was dead for a while because that was the last chapter I read before going to sleep. I was so happy to read later and just to find out that, okay, there's a possibility of him waking up. At one point, Ryland blows a high pressure air gun at Rocky just because he thinks that it will help him, and then when Rocky wakes up, he actually tells him it could have killed him if he did it earlier. But Rocky has healed enough at that point, so it didn't do a big damage. Everything goes dark, and Ryland realizes that the predator got into the, again, I guess, fuel tanks, and they start eating astrophage again. Ryland is so stressed at this point. Rocky, the angel, the Jesus himself, tells him to sleep and rest and he'll deal with it. So Ryland wakes up with the problem being solved. The scientists from the group A and group B, they both died in the explosion just because they didn't measure astrophage correctly. So they both died, and they don't have a scientist anymore who has that gene to be able to survive coma. Apparently Ryland has it. At first, they just ask him to go. They give him like 3 hours to think about it. So when he goes to Strauss, he tells her he still doesn't want to go. But he tells him that he's gonna go regardless, and it didn't matter if he wanted to go or not. They just basically put him to sleep, told the rest of the crew that he actually agreed to do it, but he wanted to be put to sleep earlier so he doesn't get scared or anxious before the launch. That's where I like the book and how they portrayed Dr. Strauss more than the movie, maybe. In the movie, I think it ended up being a little surprise just because how much softer Strauss was in the movie. We didn't get any of the flashbacks where she kind of showed her determination towards the mission, while in the book we had all these moments her doing kind of immoral things here and there. At one point she even tells Ryland that she's probably gonna go to jail after this, but she doesn't care. The only thing she wants to do is to send those people to space and try to save the planet. In the present day, Ryland and Rocky try to isolate the predator to see the predator will survive on Venus and 3 world, which is Rocky's equivalent of Venus. It can survive because it dies whenever it comes in contact with nitrogen. So they're trying to breed nitrogen resistant Tembionas. I forgot what's the Taumyoba. At the end they do that and they breed it to a point where it can survive in both worlds. They exchange gifts. Ryland gives Rocky a laptop with all the human technology information, and Rocky gives him cyanide. Cyanide is the material that Rocky used throughout the whole book to build shit. His whole spaceship is made of that. A few days after their goodbye, Ryland finds out that Taumyoba is loose again. It's because when they were breeding it in the cyanide tanks. So the predator not only got resistant towards nitrogen, but it also learned how to hide in cyanide. As I said before, Rocky's entire ship is made of this material. Ryland knows Rocky's fucked. He has this big decision to make. Either leave Rocky to die, and not only Rocky but his whole planet to die, but return home safely and make sure that the predator gets into the hands of humans, or he goes save Rocky. He uses beetles to send the material to Earth, but he dies because he doesn't have enough food to survive. As I was reading it, I was just thinking, Ryland, don't make me fucking hate your ass. Go save Rocky. And the author, this fucker, he started the next paragraph with, "I'm sorry, Rocky." So I thought again that he's just gonna leave him behind. Partially it's because we have this whole flashback of Ryland not wanting to sacrifice his life before, and how it actually hit him hard, because also it hit me hard if I realized that someone sent me on suicide mission without me wanting to go, because before he thought that he also decided to go willingly. So because of that, I genuinely thought for a few sentences that he's gonna leave Rocky behind, but he didn't. He said I'm sorry because he sent the Beatles without Rocky being there, and Rocky would have wanted to see it. Anyway, he goes to Rocky, basically saves him. Rocky's so happy to see him again. So cute. Ryland tells Rocky about his situation with food and how he just cannot survive here anymore. But Rocky gives him an idea of, oh well, have you tried eating the predator, Taumyoba? And that's how he survived. Rocky brings him home on Edith. He's very malnourished, but he did manage to survive their journey. Smartest brains of Edith tried to make his life comfortable. I think at one point they started making meat out of his own cells, so he eats burgers every day, and he has this whole environment by himself. He stays there for years. I'm not sure for how long, but definitely longer than in the movie. He has no idea what happened to Earth or if the Beatles reached the Earth in time. He walks with a cane because the gravity on Edith is much stronger than on Earth, so it has been very hard on his bones. I think at the end he was 53, but 70 years passed since he was born on Earth. Rocky meets him and tells him the good news that the scientists noticed that the sun is back to its full power again. So it means that they got the beetle samples and they managed to what needed to be done. Rocky offers him to go to Earth because they can make enough fuel, but obviously this journey would be very long and he would have to be alone for years. He got quite a little older. At the end, he just goes and teaches small Iridians like he used to teach on Earth, and I like that ending. I thought that ending was very wholesome. Although I remember from this author, because he also wrote Martian, I've read the book and I've watched the movie. I remember specifically the movie ends with the main character teaching in the class, so I just thought it was funny how he ended the book in a similar way. Although I don't know if in the book it also happened, but I remembered the movie scene. And I think the ending is something that I did not like in the movie, just because I liked how in the book it was more, not mysterious how people got the samples, but in the movie they basically showed that Strauss was still in power, I guess, and how they got the samples and stuff. That's what I didn't like, because in the book when she mentioned that she doesn't care if she goes to jail and stuff, I genuinely thought it would be a little better if she did lose all her power and got punished for it, instead of just being in power for the next like 20-30 years and then saving the Earth. I just liked how the book left it a little more open-ended in this way of what happened on Earth, the movie, but it wasn't that bad. Overall, I really enjoyed the book. I really enjoyed the movie. I was a little high during it and I was watching it in this movie theater.